Okay, let us continue the topic, a new topic. In last lectures, we have completed the topic of composition levy scheme. Until today, we have completed three sections basically. Section 9 of the CGST Act, levy and collection of intrastate supplies. Section 5 of IGST Act, levy and collection of tax in case of interstate supply, and Section 10, which is composition levy scheme. These three we have completed. And you can attempt any numerical based on composition levy from any material which you have, if your theory is clear. The point which I have covered, those are more than sufficient for your level. Now let me start a new topic, registration. This is also one of the main topic of GST laws, because until and unless you are registered, you cannot collect any tax from the consumers, or you cannot collect any tax when you supply goods or services. Until and unless you are a registered person, you cannot take any input tax credit for those taxes which you have paid when you have purchased goods or services, when you availed goods or services. If you are not a registered person, then you cannot deal with the government of India as far as this indirect tax is concerned or GST is concerned. Just like to have communication with income tax department, you must be having PAN number. To communicate with GST department or CBIC, you must be having your GST number. So every supplier of goods or services, if they have GST registration number, only then they can communicate with department. But do you think that everyone is having GST number? Answer is no. Just like everyone doesn't have PAN number in India, everyone doesn't have PAN number. Same is the case. Every person cannot be having GST number. There are so many small shops. There are so many street vendors. Everyone is doing some business. Someone is selling coconut water on the street. Someone is selling some toffees, some small confectionery shop, tire puncture repair shop, juice shop, sweet shops, Kiryana stores, shoe shop, hardware, vegetable vendors. So there are so many businessmen. Everyone is a businessman, even if the business is small, but the person is a businessman. Now, do you think that it is practical to make sure that everyone takes GST registration? Answer is no. Because government cannot check this, whether everyone takes GST registration or not. And if government cannot check this carefully, and if they make this GST registration compulsory, then it will only promote corruption in the department, because the officers who will check the places of business of anyone, and if they have not taken this registration, they will surely get some amount in the form of corruption. So basically, if government cannot take care or cannot verify or cannot check any provision or any rule, it is better that don't make it compulsory. Otherwise, it will only promote corruption. That is why GST registration is not mandatory for each and every supplier. It's not mandatory. Just like in Income Tax Act, we have some exemptions that if I earn the income till 2,50,000 rupees, etc., etc., I'm not supposed to pay any tax to the government of India, and I don't need any PAN number. Same is the case in this GST. If my aggregate turnover does not exceed one limit, if my aggregate turnover per year does not exceed that limit, then I'm not supposed to take GST registration. If I will not take GST registration, I will not collect any tax from the recipient. I will not avail any tax on the. I will not avail any credit of input tax credit of tax paid on my purchases, and I will not directly deal with the GST department. That's it. So I will tell you now the topic of registration. Who have to take compulsory registration? Who are exempt from registration? What is the turnover limit? How do we compute this? So let me first show you the original CGST Act, which deals with the topic of registration. So let me share with you the CGST Act amended till 1st Jan 2021. That means on first day of our academic session. Let me show you this PDF file. I will show you the original language, then I will start simplifying this language. But I want you to be sure that at least you must be having an idea that in future when you go anywhere and you will be given the task of some legal work, you will not feel hesitant or you will not be having any fear of reading the original language. So this is the benefit of day-to-day practice of going through the original acts, because these only will prevail in future. Let me show you this PDF file. This is my CGST Act. I hope it is visible. You please tell me if it is not visible, otherwise I am assuming that it is clearly visible to you, including the font size. Chapter 6 of the CGST Act. Chapter 6 of the CGST Act deals with the topic of registration. Now, it is a lengthy chapter. Composition levy, if you remember, is over in one section only. It was over in one section, section 10. Levy and collection was over in one section, section 9 of the CGST Act. Levy and collection in case of interstate supply is over in one section, section 5 of the IGST Act. But registration is in 9 sections of CGST Act, starting from section 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. So there are 9 sections which deal with the topic of registration. That is why you can imagine the relevance of this topic, registration. So let me today discuss with you section 21. Let me first read this language for you and then I will simplify the points. Now, what is section 22? Persons liable. That means compulsory liable for registration. Who are those people who have to take GST registration? If they don't take, then there will be penalties. Subsection 1. It is my subsection 1. Now what it says? Every supplier, not recipient, every supplier shall be liable to be registered under this act. Which act? Which act I am studying? CGST Act. So every supplier has to take registration under GST laws, specifically CGST Act, in the state or UT other than the special category states. Now there are two types of states or UT. Some are normal states or UT and some are special category states. Section 22 subsection 1 is applicable only to the normal state or UT because it excludes other special category states. From where? So in that state or in that UT from where this supplier is making a taxable supply of goods or services or both. So if I am a supplier of goods in Haryana, I have to apply for registration in Haryana. If I am a supplier of goods in Tamil Nadu, I have to apply for GST registration number in Tamil Nadu. If I am a supplier of goods in Mizoram, I have to apply in Mizoram. So it depends in which state or UT you are supplying the goods, from where you are supplying the goods. Another condition, if his aggregate turnover in a financial year exceeds 20 lakh rupees. This is the main point. So till 20 lakh rupees aggregate turnover in the current financial year, in the composition levy scheme, I was also using the word aggregate turnover, but in composition levy scheme, aggregate turnover of preceding year is also relevant, current year is also relevant. Both were relevant depending upon different situations. But in this case, previous year aggregate turnover is not relevant. What is relevant is current year's aggregate turnover. So if current year's aggregate turnover exceeds 20 lakh rupees, I have to apply for registration, otherwise there will be penalties. And as far as special category states is concerned, it is written in the exception provided means exception, where such person makes taxable supply of goods or services or both from any of the special category states. So in case of special category states, he shall be liable to be registered if his aggregate turnover in a financial year exceeds 10 lakh rupees. That's it. So in special category state, I must apply for registration if my aggregate turnover in a year exceeds 10 lakh. Other than special category states, I must apply for registration if my aggregate turnover in a financial year exceeds 20 lakh rupees. These are the 2 points which Act says. Another exception. provided also. It is my second exception to section 22 subsection 1. This is how we interpret or read the act. Provided further that the government may, at the request of a special category state and on the recommendation of the council. So if any special category state request to the government, and if GST council recommends that request, and what can be that request? And hence the aggregate turnover referred to in the first proviso for 10 lakh to such amount not exceeding 20 lakh rupees. Now, for example, Tripura is a special category state. For example, Tripura in eastern region of our nation is a special category state. In Tripura, the limit is 10 lakh per year. But for example, Tripura government thinks that let us exempt the businessman or the service providers till 15 lakh rupees per annum. They have to make a request. The request will come to the GST council, and if GST council recommends, the government will notify that in Tripura, the registration will be required only if the aggregate turnover in a financial year exceeds 15 lakh rupees. This is what this exception is, that if state request and council recommends, they can increase the registration limit from 10 lakh to such an amount, but that such an amount cannot be higher than what? 20 lakh rupees. Similarly, we have third exception provided also. One more exception. Government may, at the request of a state and on the recommendation of the council, same thing. If state request, council recommends, then what government can do? Enhance the aggregate turnover from 20 lakh rupees to such amount not exceeding 40 lakh. In some cases, even 20 lakh limit can be increased to higher amount, maximum till 40 lakh aggregate turnover. Condition is what? It should be only for that supplier who is engaged exclusively in the supply of goods. That's it. So who are the people who are eligible, who are exclusively in the supply of goods and not services? For those people, the 20 lakh limit can be increased to 40 lakh rupees if states request. That's it. This is my section 22 subsection 1. Now, I'm skipping some subsections. I'm coming to the explanation of section 22, subsection 1. For the purpose of this section, so I'm discussing section 22. So this explanation is not for section 22 subsection 1 only. It is for section 22. I have skipped, for the time being, section 22 subsection 2 I have skipped, 22 subsection 3 I have skipped, and 22 subsection 4 I have skipped for the time being. Now this explanation is for the entire section 22. Whichever subsection doesn't matter, it is applicable. Now what it says? It simply gives you some explanation that aggregate turnover include what? Second explanation also I will discuss directly. I want to discuss with you this third explanation. It is little bit interesting and technical. The expression special category states shall mean those states or these states as specified in subclause G of clause 4 of Article 279A of the Constitution. So which are special category states? It is not written in GST Act, it is written in the Indian Constitution. So check Article 279A clause 4 and subclause B. So whatever special category states are defined in that article, for the purpose of registration, from those states exclude which states? Exclude the state of J&K. Now, of course, this J&K has become the union territory now. But let us read it. Expect the state of J&K, state of Arunachal Pradesh, Assam, Himachal Pradesh, Meghalaya, Sikkim, and Uttarakhand. So now I would like to show you Indian Constitution Article 279A. There are 11 states which are included as special category states in Article 279A, but for the purpose of registration, those 11 states which are special, will not be special only for the purpose of registration, because this language of section 22 says for the purpose of registration special category states exclude these states: JNK, Arunachal, Assam, Himachal, Meghalaya, Sikkim, Uttarakhand. These seven are not special for the purpose of registration. Now let me share with you another file, and then I will start simplifying this language, where I would like to show you Indian Constitution Article 279A. Let me share a new file. I want to show you that how you should refer in real life the acts or legal subjects. This will help you in debate and discussion at any forum. Now see this Indian Constitution Article 279A. I hope it is visible. This is my Article 279A. I need to check clause 4. This is my clause 4, and I need to check subclause G. This is my subclause G. Now these are special category states in Article 279A for the purpose of GST. The name of these which are written in the Indian Constitution are what? Special provision with reference to the states of Arunachal Pradesh, Assam, JNK, Manipur, Meghalaya, Mizoram, Nagaland, Sikkim, Tripura, Himachal, Uttarakhand. So which basically these 8 northeastern states, all northeastern states, Arunachal, Assam, then Manipur, Meghalaya, Mizoram, Nagaland, Sikkim, and Tripura. So these 8 northeastern states plus 3 North Indian states in hilly region. You can say JNK, Himachal, and Uttarakhand. These 8 are special category states for the purpose of GST. Not 8, 8 plus 3, total 11. But for the purpose of registration, 7 are excluded. So which are excluded? Arunachal is not a special category state for the purpose of registration. This is what Act 22, Section 22 says. Assam is not special. JNK is not special. Manipur is special. Meghalaya is not special. Mizoram is special. Nagaland is special. Sikkim is not special. Tripura is special. Himachal and Uttarakhand is not special. So for the purpose of registration, we have only 4 special states. And which are those 4? Manipur, Mizoram, Nagaland, and Tripura. So for the purpose of registration, if I am making supplies from Manipur, Mizoram, Nagaland, Tripura, then my aggregate turnover limit is 10 lakh rupees. And other than these 4 states, from wherever I am making the taxable supply, the aggregate turnover limit for me is 20 lakh rupees. Now I will simplify these provisions with the help of some examples also. But in case you have any problem, you ask me. Otherwise, please raise your hand if you got the concept of this original act or what I have just explained to you. If you got the concept, please raise your hand. Okay. So that means the concept is clear. So let me now show you my screen where I will start simplifying the language, which if you want to write, you can write it also. Otherwise, you can understand these points better when I start writing it in a simplified language. So what is going on is, chapter, a new topic, registration. It is covered in sections 22 to 30 of this CGST Act. If I don't write Act, by default you should assume that it is CGST Act. Now for the timing, I am starting section 22 only. And what is the heading of section 22, if you remember? Persons who are compulsory liable for registration. Persons who are these people have to take a registration, otherwise there will be penalties. Registration under GST laws. Within this, for the time being, I have discussed only first subsection 22(1), where the liability depends upon aggregate turnover. So I can say that if aggregate turnover of current financial year, what is my current financial year? For my course, my current financial year is 2020-21. If in this year my aggregate turnover, my means whom? Supplier, does not exceed rupees 20 lakh. In some cases, the limit is rupees 10 lakh. So, which are those 4 states where the limit is 10 lakh per year? Manipur, Mizoram, Nagaland, and Tripura. In these 4 states, if my per year aggregate turnover, current financial year, does not exceed 10 lakh, there is no need as a businessman to apply for GST registration. In other 4 states, other than these 4, the limit is 20 lakh rupees. So aggregate turnover, supplier. And where he has to apply for registration, where he has to apply, where to apply? In the concerned state or UT. Where to apply? In the concerned state oblique UT, from where taxable supply of goods or services is made. That's it. This is one point. Now with this, do you know all big companies have to take so many registrations? Now for example, Tata is having business in almost every state and UT. So they have to separately take registration for each and every state and UT. Separately, registration is required. Separately, registration required in each state oblique UT. If Tata is in every state and UT, if the turnover of Tata exceeds 20 lakh per year, of course it exceeds, then Tata has to take registration in every state or in every UT. This point was little bit problematic earlier when GST was brought into India. So many people were saying that why to unnecessarily create such a situation that we have to apply in every state, but government said no, you have to apply in every state. But separate registration for every tax is not required. Like the same registration will be applicable for IGST, CGST, UTGST, SGST. No separate registration. So this was beneficial also. No separate registration. Once you register under CGST, the same registration number can be used for IGST, UTGST and SGST. Not separate registration, but state-wise and UT union territory-wise, you have to take registration. This is my first point. I hope this point is clear. Now, Next point. Example. Now I would like to ask this example. Example 1. Mr. P has two offices. Odisha, Rajasthan. Aggregate turnover of Odisha is 9 lakh. For Rajasthan, aggregate turnover is 14 lakh. Now, before discussing this, do you remember the meaning of aggregate turnover? Do you remember the meaning of aggregate turnover? Do you remember the meaning of aggregate turnover? When I was discussing composition levy scheme, at that time also we required aggregate turnover. But just because aggregate turnover word is there, it does not mean that the same definition will be applicable for each and every concept. No. In composition levy, the calculation of aggregate turnover was little bit different. In registration, this calculation is little bit different. But aggregate turnover is not defined in this section 22. Neither it was defined in composition levy scheme. In composition levy, some words were used, some sentences were used that aggregate turnover should include the following or it will not include the following. But overall, what is aggregate turnover? So I need to take the help, and I have taken this help in composition levy also from section 2 clause 6. From section 2 clause 6 of the CGST Act. And do you remember what was defined there in section 2(6)? How they have defined aggregate turnover? They say that aggregate turnover, I will show you that act also, but let me see whether you remember the concept done in composition levy scheme or not. Aggregate turnover includes the following supplies: of a person having same PAN number, having same permanent account number, because when you take GST registration, PAN number is compulsory. Same PAN number on all India basis. Now this has to be computed on all India basis. Now if I have two offices, so I am the owner. The states are different, but PAN number is same. PAN number is of Mr. P. In the above example, PAN number is of Mr. P. States are different because Act says that in every state I need to apply. So PAN number will go common. So aggregate turnover includes Mr. P's total supplies, as it is mentioned, all India basis and having same PAN. So Mr. P is having same PAN number. So with supply, supply will be all taxable supplies of this person on all India basis. All exempt supplies, the products on which there is no GST, still that is turnover. GST is a different thing, but that is a part of your sale. See, export of goods or services, D, interstate supply of goods and services, interstate supply. These four constitutes aggregate turnover, and what it does not include. So I have to do the total of these four. What is not included? Do you remember in aggregate turnover what is not included? Logically, what is not included? I will show you the act also. What do you not? What you should not include? All supply.
Value.
Yes.
value of good and services, uh, 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 which are which is required to pay under reverse charge mechanism.
Yes, very good. All supplies on which, very good, tax is payable on reverse charge mechanism. Of course it should be there, because if he is Mr. A and I am Mr. K, I purchase something from Mr. A. What is my supply when I sell it further to Mr. Y? Okay, it should be my supply. Now here these are my purchases. Just because I am supposed to pay on these purchases tax as per reverse charge, it doesn't make it as my supply. So government should not put me in double burden. Already one burden is what? That I should pay tax also on my supplies. Of course, I must be paying tax on my supply, but I should deposit also this tax to the government. It is already one extra burden. And now you say that, if you say that this purchases will be treated as your sale also, then I will say that why? It will be duplication. Already, because what I am selling is already my sale. So why I should include this purchase also? Of course, what I am selling is this purchase only. So that is why, just because you are purchasing something and on which tax is paid on reverse charge, it doesn't make that purchase as a part of your aggregate turnover. This is one thing, it should not be included. Second, what should not be included is all GST taxes, whether it is CGST, IGST, SGST, UTGST, these taxes are also not included. GST compensation cess is also not included. So I'm not discussing anything new. It is written in section 2 clause 6. Let me show you this. In composition levy also the same definition was used with some adjustments, that starting from 1st April till the date when I am liable to be registered, that turnover should be included in aggregate turnover, exempt supplies, etc. So composition levy as well as registration are not defining aggregate turnover exactly. They are simply making some modifications. Let me show you the same thing which I have written is written in section 2 clause 6. So I simply adopted that definition from section 2 clause 6. Let me show you for your understanding. This is section 2 clause 6. Aggregate turnover means the aggregate value of all taxable supplies excluding the value of inward supplies on which tax is payable by a person on reverse charge basis. It includes not only taxable supplies, exempt supplies, exports of goods and services or both, and interstate supplies, persons having same PAN number, to be computed on all India basis, but excludes central tax, state tax, union tax, integrated tax, and cess. It is GST compensation cess. So what I have written is as it is section 2 clause 6. Now I will make some modifications which are mentioned in section 22. Now what? Now, before proceeding further, if I want to discuss with you the same example, Mr. P having two offices, Odisha, Rajasthan, aggregate turnover 9 lakh, 14 lakh. Can you tell me whether this person is liable for registration or not? Yes or no? Yes or no? Whether this person is liable for registration or not? Can you tell me whether this person is liable for registration or not? What is the answer? Can you make an attempt whether this person is liable for registration or not? Can you try? Any answer whether this person is liable for registration or not? Mr. P is having two offices, one in Odisha and another in Rajasthan. In Odisha, his aggregate turnover per year is 9 lakh. In Rajasthan, his aggregate turnover is 14 lakh. My question is he liable for registration or not? What is your answer? Is he liable for registration or not? What is your answer? Think and tell. Prachi, can you answer this?
Yes, sir, because it is more than 20 lakhs. So,
Yes. So because the turnover is more than 20 lakh rupees, because the turnover, is this slide visible still?
yes, sir.
Okay. Yes, answer is yes. He is liable for registration. Why? Because the turnover exceeds 20 lakh rupees. And the states are not those four states, Odisha and Rajasthan. So this person has to take compulsory registration in any case. Next example. Now, next example. Now, let me say that Mr. Q has two offices, um, Kerala and Tripura. Tripura. In Kerala, the aggregate turnover of Mr. Q is what? 8 lakhs. In Tripura, the aggregate turnover is what? 3 lakh. Can anyone tell me now whether this person is liable? Yes or no? Whether this person is liable for GST registration or not? Can you try? Now, if you remember, Tripura is that state which is in those four states where the limit is 10 lakh rupees. If you remember, Manipur, Mizoram, Nagaland, and Tripura. In these four states, the limit is 10 lakh. Other than these four states, the limit is 20 lakh. Now, if you do the total, it has become 11 lakh. But now, what confusion is there? One state where 20 lakh limit is this, one state where 10 lakh limit is this. So, I should check the limit of 20 lakh or 10 lakh. Answer is 10 lakh. If now, what concept I have applied? My answer in this case is yes, because the turnover exceeds 10 lakh rupees. Answer is yes, but do you know which concept I have applied? If a person has different places of business, if a person has different places of business and one place is in any of these four states, any of these four states, then the aggregate turnover limit becomes 10 lakh rupees for this person, not only for this state, for aggregate. Then the aggregate turnover limit would be taken as rupees 10 lakhs for this person for the purpose of registration. I hope this point is clear. If yes, please raise your hand. Okay, now next point. Now next point is some notes on aggregate turnover. Some points to be noted for aggregate turnover. For the purpose of registration. It doesn't mean that these points will be applicable at other places also where the word aggregate turnover come. No, it is only for registration. Now what is my this first point? Aggregate turnover includes the value of supply made by a person on his own account or on behalf of his principals. So it is principal agent relationship basically on behalf of his principals. Let me tell you how to explain this point. Example, Mr. X. He has appointed Mr. Y as his agent. Now, do you remember there is an agent principal relationship? So, X is the principal and Y is the agent. And Y is also supplying goods to Mr. K. So, what Y is doing? He is supplying the goods further on his own. Apart from the agent, he has his own status also, as well as agent of X. So as Mr. Y, who is the agent of X, he is supplying the goods further on his own and as agent of X. So on his own, the turnover is, for example, 9 lakh. As an agent, for example, the turnover is 21 lakh, for example. In this case, as per the concept, do you know aggregate turnover limit of Mr. Y would be how much? Is equal to 30 lakh rupees. 9 lakh plus 21 lakh. Because Act says, this is what explanation 1 which is written in section 22, which I have not read. I have simply explained it on his own account as well as on behalf of principal. Agent cannot say that do not include 21 lakh in my turnover. Agent cannot say this. Act says no, even if you are supplying something on behalf of principal, still you are doing some sale. So that is also a part of your aggregate turnover and you have to take compulsory registration if by including this your aggregate turnover limit exceeds the ceiling which is based upon the place from where you are providing the service. That's it. This is first point. I hope it is clear. If not, you can ask me, otherwise I am proceeding to the next point. Second point on
Sir,
aggregate
it
turnover.
will be included
Yes.
in turnover of X also, 21 lakh.
In turnover of X, which will be included. Now you do not know whether this 21 lakh is as it is supplied or earlier 19 lakh was supplied or thereafter 2 lakh separately supplied, okay, or thereafter 13 lakh exactly supplied. You don't know that figure, na? Out of whatever value Mr. Y has right now, X has ordered to supply 21 lakh right now. But one thing is clear that if 21 lakh has come from here, whether in single lot or other lot, that will be included in his supply also. These values will be included in his supply also. So as an agent, if 21 lakh is included in this supply also, when this 21 lakh supply was transferred from principal to agent, at that time also this would have been included in principal's aggregate turnover also. Point clear or not?
Yes, sir, clear.
Because technically these are the supplies. Even if a supply is between the principal and an agent, to remove corruption, because when you have more exemptions, more deductions, corruption is promoted. So to remove such things, that tomorrow when any raid happens, or any businessman say that I am the agent of the principal, so it should not be my supply. So government removed all such obstacles, that even if supply happens between principal and agent, it is a supply of these people. Point clear or not?
Sir, clear.
Shall I proceed?
Yes, sir.
Okay, next point now. Similarly, we have, so earlier case was principal and agent, and now we have another relation, principal and job worker. This is also a relationship, principal and job worker. And I'm always giving one simple example. X Limited is the principal, for example, and Mr. Chandu is the job worker, for example. A job worker. Who are job workers? These people are experts. Now, for example, X Limited is a manufacturer of jeans. But to stitch a button in the factory, laborers are not expert in stitching the button. Mr. Chandu is a job worker. He has his own place of business, a small place of business, where he has only one machine, small machine, and he is an expert in stitching the buttons on jeans. Stitching the buttons on jeans. Button, you can say button on jeans. One button is required in one jean. So what this principal is doing, X Limited, for example, there are 1000 jeans without buttons. These were sent by the principal to a job worker who is Mr. Chandu. He will stitch the buttons on these 1000 jeans, and there are two possibilities now. After stitching the buttons, when the buttons are stitched, what can happen? Two options. Either the principal will say that to job worker that I will directly supply it to my consumer Mr. X from your place of business, or they will say that we will bring back these jeans, and from here we will supply to whom? Mr. X. So there are two options available. When as a principal my product has gone to the job worker for some work, I have two options. Why to unnecessarily increase my transportation cost? Why not to supply the good directly from that job worker to my consumer? Or another option is bring back at my place of business. Then again I will supply back. So these two options is there in the case of job worker. Here the point is what? When this point, when these are supplied back, when these are supplied by the job worker, these 1000 jeans, when these are supplied from the job worker's place of business, it is not treated as aggregate turnover of job worker. Aggregate turnover does not include aggregate turnover of a job worker, does not include The value of supply of goods. Supplied by the principal for job work. It will not include this. Because as a job worker, why should I'm not concerned about the cost of the jeans for job work. It is not included. In fact, it is the aggregate turnover of the principal. It is the aggregate turnover of the principal. This is the point. Whenever any job worker has done any work on that good which is supplied by the principal only for the job work, then that value of those goods will not be included in the aggregate turnover of the job worker. It is still the aggregate turnover of the principal. This is the next point which I wanted to make. If it is clear, please raise your hand. If you have any doubt, please ask. These things are required to be learnt. Why? Because these will help me in clearing uh, the numericals on registration. Examiner can ask by giving these values that explain whether Mr. X or Y is liable for registration or not. Now, next point. It will take 5 or 7 minutes more, then I will end up this session. Let me try to wind up entire section 22.1. So, most of the points I have discussed, and let me see any other point if left or not. Twenty-two one is over. Yes. Section 22 subsection 1 is over. I have discussed with you a concept of those people or persons who are liable to take registration. It all depends upon the aggregate turnover limit. Do remember that. Don't take aggregate turnover common for each and every concept. For composition, I have a different calculation framework of this aggregate turnover, and for registration I have different way to compute aggregate turnover. Of course, the foundation is section 2 clause 6, but then I have to make suitable amendments as per that respective section for which I am working. That's it. Goodbye from my side. Today we have covered only section 22 subsection 1 related with compulsory liable on the basis of aggregate turnover. Within section 22 compulsory liable, we have other subsections also which I will discuss with you in the next class. Goodbye for now, and thanks.